Hey folks, I'm just headed to the office. I got my almost third on-call shift back to back. Had a few days off in between, but I had to take another on-call shift. But I'm driving in, so it's halfway through the day. I just wanted to make sure I had some office time, so I'm doing that. I have a topic that was from an interesting experience yesterday that I wanted to share, and I'll generalize it. But it's based on like a real thing, and it felt very relevant to kind of walk through. So I wanted to talk about like I wanted to come up with like a catchy way to say this, but like I wanted to talk about being the person that asks the stupid questions. And I thought that this was just like such a good like example that came up. And I want to, like I said, I'm going to generalize it, but I had this assumption about how something works on our team, and it just has to do with the technology, so it doesn't really matter for the details here, but I had this assumption about how it works. And it's not that it's like spoiler alert, the assumption's wrong. And it's not that this was like an assumption that was going to be catastrophic to get wrong, but it's kind of just been something I've assumed and have operated with that in the back of my mind. And I had an email that came in where someone was asking a question, and the fact that they were asking their particular question made me go, wait a second, like either this person's completely missing it, or maybe my assumption that I've had for a while is actually just wrong. And so that was reason enough for me to go, hey, you know what? Like, maybe I don't know the way that this works. Because if this person's asking, and I guess I'm not giving you the details, so like the way that they were asking implied that something was completely optional, and I thought that there was no option, and clearly they had evidence that it was it was not optional. Or sorry, that it was optional, because they were already operating without the thing. So I was like, oh crap, like I must be wrong. Like there's just a gap in my understanding. So I had messaged one of the product managers, and I said, hey, like you're on this email thread and I'm trying to respond to this person, but I'm pretty sure that like this has been my assumption, and I don't think so anymore. And he responded to me and he said, good question, but like I'm pretty sure I had the same assumption as you. So I'm going, okay, like, you know, it's rebuilding my confidence a little bit, but I'm going, something's up now, right? Like there's seemingly some evidence here that my view is not right, but there's at least one other person that is kind of on the same page as me, but they're willing to accept that they don't know. Okay, so I was at the office, so I asked one of the engineers on my team, who doesn't work in that particular space, but I said, hey, like, do you know the answer to this? And they, you know, totally fair, they're like, actually, I don't. And so I was like, okay, like, you know, there's at least now some evidence growing that maybe this isn't obvious information. So even if I'm wrong, maybe I shouldn't feel so bad about it, right? The reality is if you're wrong, you shouldn't feel bad about being wrong, just like you learn from it. But okay, let's go to the next group of people. I had two other people walk in at the office, and I said, hey, I got a question for you. And then I explained my assumption. And then they had said, I actually don't know if we have the same assumption about that, but here is like one variation of that. But they were also unable to say with confidence sort of the counterpoint. Like, we don't know if your assumption's right, but we don't know if the other side is 100% true either. So far, I've now talked to 4 different people who can't say, and 5 including me, who now can't say with confidence. And so we were kind of joking about this, right? Like, it's kind of funny, like, hey, we don't know, we should go figure this out. And as we were joking about that, we had another product manager walk in, and we have a pretty good working relationship, I feel, with, so I made a joke, and I said, hey, I got a question for you in front of this group. And so I asked him the question, and then I immediately followed up with, not to put you on the spot. And he's like, well, come on, man, you are putting me on the spot, literally. And so he actually said, I don't think that assumption's true. So now we're getting this different perspective coming in. And I said, okay, totally fair. And then I said, if it's not this, then what is the other thing? And he had a partial answer, but he was like, but I actually cannot say that with confidence. Right? So how many people is that now? That's 2, 4, 5 people? I can't remember. Counting's bad. But that's a decent chunk of people. I think it's 5, 6, including me, where we're going, you know what? We actually don't know. So what I was trying to demonstrate, and we talked about it yesterday, was like, I'm going to be the person that's going to ask that, air quotes, like, stupid question. I'm going to do it because if I don't know, and now some assumption I have is being tested and is very likely wrong, which is, it's fine, I can't run from that. I can't just go like, guess I'm going to, try and hide from this going forward. Like, I really need to know the answer to that, because if I, going forward, have to keep trying to dodge it, that's going to be a weird avoidance in my career. Like, it's going to be more uncomfortable to try and, run away from that assumption. So, the first person that I had said I messaged, while this is all happening, in parallel, I had reached out to 2 other people that I knew with a high degree of confidence they would be able to give us a very concrete answer and, put that to rest. But they weren't responding while all of this was happening. So, that person, that first product manager I reached out to, he said, like, hey, thanks for being the person who's going to go ask. I said, no problem. And then the people that I was talking to in the office, we literally talked about this idea, like, hey, look, like, I'm going to be the one here that I will show you it's okay to ask questions. And, like, even if it makes you feel a little awkward or a little embarrassed that you don't know, like, I need to demonstrate that we have to create an environment where that's okay. And the sort of conclusion to this example is that my manager had come into the office for a meeting that was right at the end of the day. Actually, 2 meetings are at the end of the day. And so in between those 2 meetings, when we were all kind of sitting in this conference room, I said, hey, now that you're here, I said, I got a dumb question for you. So he laughed and he said, okay, what's up? And this is, again, in front of all the other people that were having this conversation with me. And I said, I have made an assumption and I'm pretty sure that it's invalid. So I wanted to kind of walk through it. So I said, this is what my assumption has been. And he said, okay. And I said, but I'm pretty sure that's wrong. And he's like, it is wrong. And I said, but when I started thinking through the options for this, I thought it was either 100% this. When I thought that it was being disproven, I said, the only other thing I could think of, and again, I'm not going to explain the technology, I said, but the only other thing I can think of is that it's like this other thing. And he's like, it can be that other thing, but there's even one more option. So point is, he then took the time to explain to the whole room of us, like, here's how this stuff works. There's one option, there's a second option that we talked about, and there's actually a third option that kind of surfaced in our conversations, and they were all technically, part of it. So it was very interesting because in our conversation together as a group before my manager came in, we were actually arriving at the right conclusion, but none of us could say with full confidence. And sure enough, when I had gone back to my desk and I did have a response from the people that I reached out to, it was very much in line with what my manager said. So all of this to say that I took, I think, 3 opportunities there to basically try to demonstrate to a group of people, like, it's okay to go ask a question where you're, like, feeling a little bit embarrassed about not knowing. And in fact, like, we need to continue to demonstrate that kind of behavior so that as a team we can be more comfortable doing that. So I thought this was an important topic because I think that a lot of the time, especially for more junior developers, and depending on the team culture that you have, this is something that people try to hide from, right? Like, I don't want to ask questions because I don't want to look stupid. Or, you know, it might be, and I think I made a LinkedIn post about this one time, and someone was like very offended by it because I said, in the same like sentence, I had said like, I don't want to look stupid, or I don't want to look more junior. And they were like, oh, so you're calling juniors stupid? I was like, yeah, you can try to take my words and twist them however you want to tell the kind of narrative you want to tell, but like, the only stupid person here is you for doing that. But like, if you don't want to ask a question because you don't want to be perceived in a different way. There we go, right? I don't know. I'm not trying to call junior engineers stupid. That's the last thing on my mind, or else I wouldn't be making the majority of the content I make to try and encourage junior engineers. But anyway, it's the internet, right? So I think it's really important to talk about this stuff, or else you get stuck in a culture where, you know, you feel like that's the normal thing, that you're not allowed to ask questions, or that you're going to be, you know, ridiculed for it, or that you're going to be thought of like, you know, people aren't going to come to you with tasks now, or like you're going to not grow in your career because you're the guy or the gal with dumb questions. Like, you know, it's just not true. And in fact, the other way is more problematic, because as I kind of hinted earlier, if your next opportunity is then to be like, I need this avoidance pattern, how do you think that you're going to be successful in the work that you're doing if you're constantly trying to like run from a scenario that comes up, right? So in this case, like I was saying, for me, I had made this assumption, and like, it's not like it wasn't coming up all of the time, but when it did and my assumption was wrong, it wasn't detrimental. It's just like, it was almost like peripheral to the stuff I'm doing. So, okay, I keep going. But it's not like it's going to get less or lessened, right? It's not that, it's not the frequency of that's going to go down. It's going to keep showing up. And in fact, now that I understand that better, I was able to fully respond to, you know, the partner that had reached out for some information, and I could give them better information now that I had that background. The next person, because there will be more, the next person that asks about that, I will be better equipped. And you know what? I'm still not an expert on that, right? But now I know, and I can defer to other people, right? I will keep learning and growing from it. And I need to be able to demonstrate that, right? So in this example, I was able to say, hey, here's the part that I can explain, you know, pretty confidently. I said, here's how this other part works. And if you have more questions about that for now, this other part, I said, here's another person that you can talk to. And then I also encouraged them. I said, you know, because you're reaching out over email, if you need more help, like getting this pulled together, like schedule a call with us. Like, we'll all jump on a call and talk about it together, because it's a little bit ambiguous, right? If you're not familiar with it. So just trying to remind people that, like, just because now I had this extra piece of information, I'm not trying to pretend like I'm an expert on it now, because I'm not. There's no benefit to just like trying to lie about that. I would much rather get someone the help they need, because I can use the resources I have to do that. And then it's not, I guess the last part to mention there is, like, I don't just let it end there, because it's a reminder to me, I need to learn more about that. And I will learn more about that. Right? It's an identified area where I'm like, oh crap, like I should pay more attention to this. But we shouldn't punish ourselves for doing that, right? And that, I think that takes a little bit of mental training to keep that in mind. So, you know, if you're thinking about a scenario like this for yourself, whether that's happened to you already, or you're kind of anticipating now that we've talked through it, what that might look like for you, it's like, don't beat yourself up for not knowing something, right? Don't, when you get the answer, don't go, okay, great, like I did it, like, whew, like get that out of the way and let's never talk about it again. No, it's you identified something that you don't know that you can improve on. Great, like go spend more time on that. Like do the opposite. Do the opposite of running away from it or trying to minimize it. It's like that's clearly something that you could do better at if you knew more about it. So spend the time, invest in it, understand it more. Right? When we're working in these big complex areas, and I mean for any of us, I'm not just saying like specifically what I do at Microsoft. This could be on your team working on a single mobile app or something, and there's still going to be a lot of complexity in the domain, the code base that you're working in. It's not realistic for everyone to know everything. Right? You need to make assumptions about things, but if those assumptions are wrong, or you just haven't known something and it's finally come up, don't run from it. Like, run into it. Go learn about the thing. It's only going to make you better. And it doesn't make you look like a dumbass for asking questions. You might feel like it does, but you're just going to learn. Like, oh no, I learned new things. Right? It's we gotta train ourselves to get like out of that, or else you'll stay stuck there. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. I feel like I'm going to be on repeat if I keep talking about it. So thanks very much for listening. I hope that was helpful. I thought it was very relevant. And if you have questions, leave them below in the comments. And of course, if you want to be kept anonymous, go to codecommute.com, submit your question there, check the box for being anonymous. I got you, don't worry. And if you want resume reviews and that kind of stuff, DevLeader Path to Tech is the YouTube channel you want. If you want to watch interviews with other software engineers or join the live stream, that is at DevLeader Podcast on YouTube. And of course, if you just want programming tutorials in C# or how to work with AI, head over to DevLeader. Thank you so much as always, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.